Hello, ladies and gentlemen, it's Mike here at Game From Scratch, and do you remember back when $1 million sounded like a lot of money? Well, today we are going to talk about $250 million, and that is because that is how much Sony just gave Epic Games for a stake. Now, obviously, Epic Games owns Fortnite, and more important to this channel, they own Unreal Engine. So we're going to look at this investment, why it happened, what each company gets out of it, and let's find out how much of the company you get if you invest $250 million in Epic Games? And the answer is a whole lot less than you probably thought. Now, if you're a regular to this channel, remember back in June of 2020, so last month basically, I reported that Epic Games was trying to value itself at $17 billion. The way you value yourself at something like $17 billion is you say, all right, here's the amount of money that we want to be worth, but you've got to give us this amount to get there. And we're going to come back to that number in just a second. So they were looking to raise some capital. Unfortunately, they have raised some capital already in the past. Specifically, they got $300-something million from Tencent in the past. Now, we're looking here at an article from Dean Takahashi, probably one of the best journalists in the world of game development. I would actually maybe argue the only journalist in the world of game development, over on VentureBeat. We're going to see here, Sony just invested $250 million for a minority stake in Fortnite maker Epic Games, the company announced today. With the new money, Epic Games has raised $1.83 billion to date. So basically that $17 billion kind of comes between taking and calculating all those shares and how they return here. They did one of these deals in the past. Epic Games raised $1.58 to date in previous funding. So we can add another $2.5 or $250 million onto that number. The big one, and the one that people most remember or think about, is the 2012 investment of $330 million by Tencent, which was also the biggest turnaround because Tencent got a 40% stake. Now, it's still a minority stake, but it is a sizable stake. By far and away, that $330 million back here, again, that get you 40%. So what do you think $250 million is getting Sony? Well, it is getting them 1.4%, which, by the way, if you do the math, 1.4% of 100%, calculate that out to $250 million or $250 million, that gives them a valuation of $17.86 billion. Under the deal, the investment enables Sony and Epic to broaden their collaboration with Sony's portfolio of entertainment assets and technology and Epic's social entertainment platform and digital ecosystem. Think Fortnite's increased use of a social space or the Epic Games Store to create unique experiences for consumers and creators. The closing of the investment is subject to customary closing conditions, including regulatory approvals. I don't honestly see how this is going to work. It says right here, the deal is important for Sony because it needs allies in the upcoming console war. Later this year, Sony plans to launch the PlayStation 5 game console in competition with Microsoft's Xbox Series X. Epic has said its Unreal Engine 5 and Fortnite will work on all game platforms, as Epic generally been neutral when it comes to making cross-platform technology. If Sony gets any advantage from Epic, investing in Epic, it isn't clear from this deal, and I gotta agree with that 100%. Basically, if Epic Games, specifically Unreal, started to show preferential treatment towards Sony's platform, they're done for. A lot of people will just go somewhere else. There are other options out there, and that would be a bad move. And of course, it's not going to happen. Unreal Engine has been the poster child of platform agnostic development tools, online services, and so on. So I don't really see what the tie-up here is going to be. In a statement, Sony's CEO said, Epic's technology keeps it at the forefront of game development, and that is exemplified in the features of Fortnite. Epic CEO Tim Sweeney, meanwhile, said in a statement that both Sony and Epic have created businesses at the intersection of creativity and technology, and they share a vision of real-time 3D social experiences that will lead to a convergence of gaming, film, and music. He also said that parties plan to build a more open and accessible digital ecosystem for all customers and content creators. That, honestly, I think is where this real deal comes to, is things like their online services, their single sign-in, all of that stuff. Because for one, Sony kind of suck at these things, and that's kind of an area where Epic is really pushing. That is the best synergy I see there, as well as this one that they've brought up. Recently, Fortnite has been doing things like having Travis Scott concerts. Well, Sony is a big owner of media content and so on. So when you start looking at that social tie-in between Sony media brands and then the Fortnite ecosystem, well, that starts to make a lot more sense. The mention of a more open and accessible digital ecosystem is also a surprise, as Tim Sweeney has long been a proponent of open systems, while Sony has been an example of a company that protects its proprietary technology. Sony has, however, enabled Fortnite to function as a cross-play game that has also let friends play each other across other platforms, which is the other thing that's kind of funny here. I believe Sony was the very last one when it came to crossplay. I think Microsoft was there. I think the mobile platforms were there. I think even Nintendo was there. Basically, it was just Sony being, well, Sony. So they're right. There is a little bit of oddness to there. Mind you, the kicker here is that this sounds like this is actually separate from the money they were trying to raise that I reported back in June. This deal is different from the one that was reported in June, which independently confirmed that Epic was seeking to raise $750 million at pre-money valuation of 16.3. So the cool thing here is they're at least valued at that amount of money. So they are still looking for investments. It's kind of curious what exactly Epic Games are planning to do with this giant pile of money. I'm not 100% certain at this point in time, but yeah, I like the way they spend their money so far. And the thing is, they've got money coming hand over fist still for Fortnite. Apparently, during the COVID lockdown, they have made more money than they ever have in the past off of Fortnite. So even if it might be dying off a little bit, it's still making some pretty good money here. So we got some details of Sony's money coming in here. GamesBeat said that in 2019, Epic reported $4.2 billion in revenue and $730 million in earnings. Revenue for 2020 is forecasted to be $5 billion. And as I mentioned earlier on, Fortnite revenue was $400 million in just April because of like COVID lockdown, people spending all kinds of money in Fortnite. That's kind of insane, to be honest. So they are making money hand over fist. So what do they need that other $750 million and then this $250 million? So we're looking at $1 billion they're looking to raise here. I don't know what their plan is, but it's probably something pretty significant. So they received a strategic investment from Disney in the past. Again, they also have the Tencent one, and then a number of private investment firms. Unreal Engine was announced back in May. The interesting thing is it was very heavily tied to the PlayStation 5. The announcement was shown on a PlayStation 5. Remember that amazing demo? And they kind of basically said, oh yeah, by the way, this will run on, I think it was a 2070 GeForce or on the Xbox 5, but they really did showcase the PlayStation 5's capabilities, and Tim Sweeney really praised the PlayStation 5. So I do have to wonder how long this deal has been in the works. But, yep, definitely things going on there. Not much else going on. It's, again, a complete guess of where this would actually go. Now, if you're sitting there going, okay, this is the end for the Xbox, the Unreal Engine 5 is going to be a PlayStation exclusive, blah, blah, blah. No, that's not going to be the case. Once again, it's a 1.4% stake. Now, if you sold 1.4% of your company to someone, would you let them call the shots? No, it's not going to happen. Basically, Epic Games still runs and controls its own future. They just have more money on hand. But they don't do this kind of thing without some kind of a tie-in. There is going to be a reciprocal deal out of this. Obviously, it can't be on Unreal Engine. That would be a death kiss for Unreal Engine to go ahead and give preferential treatment to one platform or another. So I really do think it will be on the IP or media side of things. Maybe we'll start seeing Sony characters showing up in Fortnite, or more Sony artists showing up in Fortnite concerts. And then, of course, there is the online services. But those are just pure guesses or speculation on my behalf, because I don't even understand the numbers anymore. $250 million, $17.5 billion. They're just numbers now. Anyways, that is the news for today. Again, some of you are going to walk away a little doom and gloomy about this, especially if you are like Team Microsoft. I wouldn't sweat that at all. Again, Unreal Engine, I don't see it changing because of this investment. Once again, it's still less than 2% of the company that they own. They're not going to have enough clout that Unreal Engine would shoot itself in the foot over something like that. But I'd love to hear your opinion, comments down below, and I will talk to you all later. Goodbye.